Before I left elementary school, I had already picked up a lot of ideas about God. During those early years of my life, the church I attended with my family shaped my image of God. I can still recall some of my initial assumptions about Him. For instance, in those days, doing Sunday properly required wearing church clothes, a painfully uncomfortable uniform God apparently required in order to know if we were serious about Him. God needed us to go to Sunday school in a mildewed basement. He needed us to sit on hard wooden pews. God needed us to sing songs from George Washington's time, accompanied by musicians who clearly got their training at a funeral parlor. Even though I now know that I was missing the point, the idea got planted in my mind nonetheless that church was basically about meeting God's needs. He needs us to dress up and tell Him how great He is. God needs us to read His book and sing His songs so they won't go out of print. God needs us to give money to His church and volunteer for all His activities so that His organization can go on. He needs us to give more. He needs us to work harder. He needs us to defend Him out there in the world. Based on this understanding of God, even after we grow up, many of us are still left with the idea that the spiritual life is all about oughts and shoulds and musts, because there is just so much we need to do for God. God, we can come to think, is somehow insufficient without all we do to meet His needs. Thankfully, the Bible offers a more liberating way to understand and relate to God. It's found in an attribute of God simply called the sufficiency of God. Developing a new concept of God. Many years ago, when the Apostle Paul entered the great city of Athens, he found a mindset that was similar to my early understanding about God. The Athenians had erected shrines and spiritual symbols on almost every street corner. They'd made a business out of doing church for all kinds of gods. To make sure they'd covered all the bases, they'd even put up an altar with this inscription: "To an unknown God." They were relentless in at least superficially attending to the needs of any possible deity. During his visit to Athens, however, Paul sought to implant into the Athenians' minds a new concept of God. As he addressed them, Paul said, "The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands. And He is not served by human hands as if He needed anything, because He Himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. From one man He made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and He determined the times set for them and the exact places where they should live. God did this so that men would seek Him and perhaps reach out for Him and find Him, though He is not far from each one of us. For in Him we live and move and have our being." Acts chapter 17, verses 24 through 28. For many of us, this is a radically new approach to our relationship with God. The message of the Bible is that God does not need anything from us. He does not need our service. He does not need our temples, our religious ceremonies, or our affirmations of His worth. He does not need our nation or political parties. He does not need our efforts to set the dress code, the times and places for meeting Him, and otherwise organize reality on His behalf. He does not need us to understand Him, nor does He feel any obligation to account for Himself. Years before Paul, the psalmist declared the same message. "Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God." Psalm 90, verse 2. Before the universe came into being, God already was and always would be God. He was and is perfectly content, joyful, and completely fulfilled by simply being Himself, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In other words, God is great in a way that cannot be said of any other person or thing. Everything else we will ever touch or discover is a contingent thing. It has needs. It requires something to cause.